All right, everyone. Thank you for joining today. My name is Jeremy Ransom. I'm with the Entrust Group's Texas office. I'm a business development manager for the company. Today we'll be discussing a diversification strategy, private placements, and your IRA. Throughout the presentation, we love questions. If you have a question, if you would please type it in the chat box, and then we'll get to all of those at the end of the presentation. I'm not going to stop the presentation to answer questions as we go. All right, let's get going. So first and foremost, the Entrust Group does not provide investment advice or endorse any products. All information and materials are for educational purposes only. All parties are encouraged to consult with their attorney, accountant, and financial advisor before entering into any type of investment. So in other words, I'm not a financial advisor, I'm not a CPA, and I'm not an attorney. I don't give advice. There's never a chance that I could come up with a great investment and pass it along to any of you, because that's not what we do. About the Entrust Group, we're administrators for self-directed retirement plans. We're a leader in our industry. 35 years of service. We process between 12,000 to 16,000 client transactions every month, and about $2.2 billion in investor assets we currently work with our clients. A little bit more about us. We're a premier provider for self-directed retirement plans. Knowledgeable staff, all eligible staff have a CISP designation. Nationwide offices. We've got an office in the Northeast, in the New Jersey area, Raleigh, North Carolina. I'm in Austin, Texas, Phoenix, Arizona, and 2 offices in California, one in Northern California, our corporate office out of Oakland, and one in Southern California in the LA Orange County area. All right, so on the agenda for today, we're going to look at what a self-directed IRA is. We're going to look at some of the plan options that people have for their self-directed IRAs and self-directed retirement accounts in general. Prohibited transactions, what those are and who those disqualified people are. What a private placement is. Private placement investment options and what those may look like. Due diligence on those investments. We'll also look at a case study, how to invest in a private placement with a self-directed IRA, and then, of course, we'll have a Q&A session at the end. All right, so what is a self-directed IRA? An individual investor is in charge of making all their investment decisions. So basically, an IRA with us is like any other IRA that you would go out at Schwab, Fidelity, Merrill, and get. The difference is we allow our clients to invest in alternative assets, and so real estate, precious metals, and private placements. There's a greater opportunity for asset diversification outside of traditional stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. We don't work in the stock, bond, and mutual fund space, and so that's not something that we can provide for our clients. All investments are held in an account administered by a custodian or trustee, regulated and governed by the rules found within the various sections of the IRS code. So we're actually governed by not only the IRS code, but also the Department of Labor. Plan options, individual retirement accounts, so traditional and a Roth account. Traditional account, basically when you put the money in, you would get a deduction for that. It's $5,500 per year, $5,500 per year annual contribution limit for a traditional and a Roth account. And that's encompassing all accounts, not per account. Also, small business retirement plans, SEP plan, simplified employee pension plan, savings and incentive match plan for employees, simple plan, or an individual 401k. Those have a higher contribution limit, and those are more so for obviously self-employed people. Prohibited transactions. Definition of a prohibited transaction: any improper use of an IRA account or annuity by an IRA owner for his or her beneficiary or any disqualified person. Investments in an IRA are intended to benefit the plan and not the IRA holder directly or indirectly. So we'll talk about that here a little bit. So what is a disqualified person? So that's yourself, your spouse, your parent, your grandparent, your children, your grandchildren, spouses, lineal descendants, and so son-in-law, daughter-in-law, and IRA fiduciary. So in other words, if this was an entity that you were investing in and your son was the manager of the entity and he was in charge of making investment decisions, you would be prohibited from making an investment in that if he was the sole person in charge of that, let's say, private equity fund, for example. Prohibited transactions. Avoid improper use of your IRA plan by you or any other disqualified person. Some examples of prohibited transactions include borrowing money from a disqualified person, selling property to a disqualified person, using an IRA slash pension or slash plan as a security for a loan, buying property for personal use with an IRA or IRA plan funds. So, for example, you could not have a property. I live in Austin, Texas. Let's say, for example, my daughter decides she wants to go to Baylor University. She could not actually, we couldn't buy a condo in Waco for her to live in while she was a student because she's a direct linear relative. She's my daughter. Even if her friends lived in the condo with her, even if she was paying rent, it would still be prohibited per the IRS code. So what is a private placement? We're going to start focusing on private placements here. Private placement securities offering is an exempt offering from registration under the SEC Regulation D 504, 506, or 505. Used by companies to raise capital, so startups. Also used by companies that are doing Series A, B, C, D, or what have you rounds if they need later funding. Also used by private funds, so hedge funds, private equity funds, venture capital funds, things of that nature. What type of private placement dictates the types of investors who can invest. Each banks have tightened their purse strings when it comes to lending for new business startups, creating a higher demand for development capital for investors. And so with rates being what they are and some of the new stringent rules in place, people are finding it harder to go out to banks and get money. So a self-directed IRA could be a better option for someone if they were looking to go out and raise capital. So obtaining capital from a self-directed IRA owner can be a simpler and faster route than loan processing with institutional lenders. So potential higher returns, however, exposure to it exposes investors to a higher potential loss. So with every high return, there's potential there for a higher loss, especially if you're looking at investing in a startup company, or it even could be a company that's been around for an extended period of time. Investing in these private companies, they do carry a higher amount of risk with them. Most securities are restricted, therefore hard to resell or liquidate. There is a rule that if you were to go out and invest in a private placement, there's no exchange for you to go and sell those securities on. So it's not like you can go to the New York Stock Exchange and sell these securities. So there's some restrictions there. And the SEC also has educational materials there at that sec.gov website for investor bulletins and a little more information on private placements. I'm not really going to go into it much deeper than that. So investment options for a private placement, obviously a private placement, so that would be you investing your personal money into a company, a private company. Pool investment funds, crowdfunding. Crowdfunding is a huge thing now. You can actually use a self-directed IRA to crowdfund real estate, realty shares, or other companies that are out there. Land trusts, secured and unsecured notes. Notes have been a big thing just due to bank regulations and how hard it is for some of these companies to go out and get capital from traditional banks. LLCs, C Corps, private stock, and partnerships. What you will not see up there is an S Corp or an S Corporation. Per the IRS code, S Corps cannot receive IRA funds. When it comes to due diligence, since we don't run the diligence on the investments that our clients make for making sure that the company's doing what they say they're doing, we just want to give a few words of caution. Beware of promises of high returns. If it's too good to be true, it most likely is. Investigate the background of the broker or the company principals. Meet the representatives in person. Visit their office if possible. Keep detailed notes of all conversations that you have with the individuals seeking your investment. Ask for copies of written materials before making an investment. Research risk and how you might liquidate your private placement securities. So if there's a lockup period with that private placement, which means that that money is held for a certain period of time, there might be a penalty associated with you pulling that money out earlier. So that may be something that you want to investigate a little further before you make an investment. Research whether the private placement is being sold on a conditional basis. Sometimes certain conditions need to be met or specific dollar amounts need to be invested. An offering without a minimum level of investment and other conditions such as deadlines could be a red flag. The issuer can use the proceeds immediately. So in other words, you invest in a private company, that money goes into a escrow account, and there's no minimum needed, and the company that you're investing in has immediate access to those funds, then worst case scenario, They aren't who they say they are, and your money's gone. So do a heavy amount of research before you invest in these companies. Research the return policy should the private placement not fund. So if there is a return policy and your money goes into that escrow account, see what the process looks like if they don't meet that capital requirement and how you can get your money back. If you're close to retirement, make sure that make sure that you will be able to use the funds to make your required minimum distribution if need be. Some entities don't allow investors to sell or withdraw funds for a fixed amount of time, so like that lockup period that I was talking about. So if you had to pull funds out and use those for your RMD, now keep in mind that RMD is encompassing all of your retirement accounts, all of your IRAs. It's not just your self-directed IRA account. But if you needed access to those funds, ask the question, can I have access to these funds to make an RMD, required minimum distribution? Pass on the investment if you're asked to falsify any financial information to qualify as an accredited investor. If they ask you to falsify any information on the subscription agreement or any other legal documents that they give you, that should be an immediate red flag that they're probably not doing good business. Do not complete a subscription agreement or accredited investor questionnaire unless you understand it and agree with the entire document. And do not invest in any seller that can't satisfactorily answer any questions about the company, its business model, and its executive's experience. And so those are just a few of the points that we would like to lay out for diligence when it comes to these companies, something that could be very beneficial to you in the future should you decide to invest in private placements, private companies, private funds, things of that nature. So we'll now look at a case study of how an investment with a self-directed IRA looks investing into a private placement. So here's John. John Wood is an entrepreneur. He has an annual income of $150,000 a year. He's interested in investing part of his retirement funds into a local startup he thinks is successful. John opens a self-directed IRA with Entrust. The Entrust Group FBO John Woods account 12345 is the vesting on the account. So any subscription agreement or any investment documents that we receive for that account needs to have that name, the Entrust Group FBO John Woods account number 123456. It would not actually read John Wood as if he were making the investment himself. Also, investment documents that come over will actually execute those on behalf of the IRA. So John won't actually go through as the investor and sign those. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. He decides to roll over $40,000 from an old employer's 401k plan to Entrust. Based on Title III, which is a part of the Jobs Act of 2012, John will be able to invest up to $15,000, 10% of his annual income, in the startup. So the investment due diligence, John conducts due diligence on the investment. He asks for copies of written materials, researches the background of the broker and company officials, investigates the investment risk, reviews the private placement memorandum, and consults with financial advisor, researches the return policy, meets the representatives in person, and ensures that the transaction does not involve any disqualified people. So that's his list. John's gone through and done all of those things, so he feels pretty comfortable about the investment. John decides it's a safe investment that fits his retirement strategy. He provides the investment documentation to Entrust. John directs Entrust to purchase the investment on behalf of his account. Entrust sends the $15,000 to the broker. The purchase is complete. John's self-directed IRA now owns part of the startup's equity. So moving forward, of course, with this being in a IRA, if it was a Roth IRA, the funds would grow tax deferred. If this was a traditional IRA, if it was a Roth IRA, then the funds would grow tax free. If this was a traditional IRA, then the funds would grow tax deferred, meaning that after John pulls those funds out, after he's 59 and a half, then he is not paying tax in the case of a Roth, or he is paying tax at his marginal tax bracket, whatever that is, in the case of a traditional account. All right, so in summary, we looked at potential higher returns for IRA owners. You have a diversity option for your retirement accounts by using a self-directed IRA to invest in private placements. We've talked about avoiding prohibited transactions. We've made sure to express the importance of doing diligence on the investments that you have, that you choose to make, and invest in private placements with self-directed IRA usually is about 6 steps. Looks like there are no more questions, and so I wanted to thank you all for joining today. If you had questions, comments, please feel free to email me at jransom@theentrustgroup.com, or also my phone number there listed is 512-705-3973. Really appreciate your time, and you all have a outstanding day.